the recording now, so the session will be recorded and available to you through Handshake resources after the session. My name is Julie Paskett, and I'm a Senior Career Advisor in Career Exploration and Development. And I am joined today by our Executive Director, Kristen Williams, and our Communications Coordinator, Ariana Shriyanka. I just totally messed up her name, but they will be speaking to you today about LinkedIn. Kristen has about a 30-minute presentation followed by 30 minutes of Q&A. This morning or this afternoon, if you take a moment, please make sure you fill out that sign-in form in the chat as we get started, and I will turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Julie, and just quick shout out to Julie, who didn't botch her own title, but was recently promoted to Senior Career Advisor. And then Ariana, who successfully managed our career fair coordination, which was earlier this week. So hopefully some of you were able to come to the virtual career event. I'm going to turn on my camera just for a minute to say hello, and you'll only see a small version of me, I think, because I'm sharing my LinkedIn presentation. But just wanted to say hello to everyone and thank you for being at this session today. Before I get started, just a couple of reminders. Please feel free to use the chat. Ariana and Julie will be monitoring the chat, and it will also then be available in the recording that we have. So if you have a question, comment, or something that you want me to expand on, use the chat or use the raise hand feature, and then I will pause. I like to do this more as a dialogue. I'll pause and call on you so that you can unmute and ask the question. So just a couple of logistical things. I am going to turn my camera off. It's just easier for me to see both of my screens and the presentation. But again, just wanted to say hello. So we're going to spend some time with LinkedIn today, but I'm actually going to start by asking you to use the raise hand feature for a quick poll. How many of you, just by clicking raise your hand, have some sort of LinkedIn profile already in existence? Awesome. Based on the hands that I am seeing, we have quite a few, maybe a third, around a third, and you can go ahead and lower them now. Thank you for participating. Of the folks here today who do have a LinkedIn profile already underway at some level. So if you do, or even if you don't, what I hope that you'll be able to take away from this particular presentation is ways that you can enhance, improve, or even create a LinkedIn profile following the session today. So why do you need to have a LinkedIn profile? It is incredibly important to the recruiting process of early talent. So I don't know if you could see my t-shirt when I turned on my camera before. I was wearing our hand t-shirt, which is our job and internship platform that we use at Kent State. I would say that LinkedIn is a direct complement or even a supplement to what you see in Handshake, because that is where recruiters, so the chart here talks about 87% of recruiters, that's where recruiters spend a deal of time in their space. And next year, I hope to be able to add a bar to this chart that also shows how they're leveraging Handshake, because we know that they're increasing their use of Handshake in early talent, but they really use the two interchangeably, especially with early college talent, because it allows them to connect with you, but it also allows you to connect with not just recruiters and jobs, but also each other. And so that's what, when we say network, we're really talking about building these connections of folks, not necessarily can give you a job or tell you about job openings, but who can be in your professional, neighborhood, if you will, as you move through the life cycle of your career. So again, this says this on the slide, but there's really no other place like this. Other social media or platforms are meant to be more quick. So Twitter is more quick bursts of information. Facebook, not even sure if early talent uses that. I use it to share pictures of my cat and my children. But this is really that blend of professional space where you're highlighting knowledge, skills, and resources that complement your goals. But if you're still wondering, only 4% of recruiters don't use some sort of social media in the recruiting process. And you can see here that LinkedIn tops out sort of all of the others. Now, this won't necessarily be a presentation about how to make sure your social media is professional. We know that recruiters are using it. They're looking you up, they're Googling you. You should probably be doing the same of them. I say it's a two-way street in your job search, but they're definitely using LinkedIn. And so because of that, you don't want to be looked over because you didn't have a LinkedIn profile. So let's talk about today the elements of your profile. The three that you see here, we're really going to hone in on and review at length are your profile picture or image, as well as this top image above your profile, so your banner image, your title, overview, or intro, and then your summary. All we know are that these are really important elements for quick glance. So we talk about your resume a lot in career, and we want it to be a document where a recruiter or someone hiring can glean important information about you quickly. These three elements essentially do that same thing within LinkedIn. And so during this presentation too, there's a whole wonderful guide for LinkedIn for students, and we will drop a link to that guide in the chat. Ariana will drop that there so that you have the full resources and can follow up on that. So send a link to the chat around profile pictures. In particular, because we used to, and we will, hopefully when we resume face-to-face interactions, we used to offer profile picture days where we would take a professional profile headshot and you could upload it to your LinkedIn. Because we're not doing that right now on campus, LinkedIn has provided a great resource for us where the community has shared how you can take really amazing profile pictures with your cell phone. So we'll drop that article into, just thought of it as I went to this slide, but profile picture is important. So this is one of those elements on the profile that you want to make sure you have, but I also like to share the considerations around whether or not to have it. So it's ultimately your decision. We recommend quote unquote a professional profile picture. So, you want something that showcases you, not necessarily you and a pet or you and a group of friends, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional headshot, like I mentioned. So we'll share that resource article that will help you to be able to get that from the smartphone. And I see Ariana just dropped that in the chat. But here's why we recommend having it. Members with the profile picture see a huge increase in the number of profile views and also action. So building that network is important. Seemingly, folks don't like to connect with the empty gray headshot box. I will say this, if I were over this slide and didn't tell you that profile pictures also create the dilemma of potential acts of discrimination or bias, I would be remiss, but it's almost an expectation to have a profile picture in LinkedIn. So great resources on how you can create your own, and when we're back up and running, we'll offer those professional headshots as well. So the headline. Under David's name here is what we call that headline, or that career ambition keyword. It's short, it is limited in character, but you want to talk about, what's happening now and what are you looking towards the future. It could also be, who do you want to serve? It's really your brand. So you can see an example for a Kent State student might be honor student seeking marketing internship, or Kent State student aspiring PR associate. If you have a credential, maybe once you've graduated, you'll add, your BA, your BS, your MBA there as well. It's short, sweet, and it lets the person looking at your profile know right away what they can find as they go through the details. The slide is a little busy, but we've blurred out the individuals, but I wanted to give you some examples of what not to do with the headline. I think particularly in this time, it's one thing to point out that you're unemployed, because there are lots of folks who are, but what we want the headline to be able to do is, so you can see the top four sort of just tell me that I'm unemployed. They don't tell me what I'm looking for. They don't tell the recruiter how they can help you. So Of all 5 of these, the one at the bottom here still says unemployed and unemployed, which I would eliminate. It tells us what they're looking for, seeking remote positions. So this person, I can't see all of their profile, but I can see that they worked in a financial office setting, maybe could replace that unemployed with some information about what they've done in the past and what they're looking for now. Similarly, all of the others, well, I don't know what they've done in the past. It could be something as simple as, Greater Philadelphia financial advisor seeking opportunity remotely in the East Coast. So let the headline give a glimpse of what your skill set is and what you're seeking, because that tells recruiters how they can help you, or why they should take a deeper dive. Why should they click here? Why should they connect? Why should they click on your name and see more about who you are? And then the summary. That's the 2-paragraph, 5 or 6 sentences that could be likened to an objective or summary statement on your resume, but gives you the chance to share, something about you in a more conversational way. It should be keyword rich, and what we mean by keyword rich is if you're targeting a specific industry or job space, you want to know the jargon or the vernacular language in that industry and what might typically show up on position descriptions or internship job roles, so that you can mimic or list some of those words as they pertain to you in your summary. So financial industry, that would be a keyword. Economics is going to be a keyword. Invisible forces might have been something that this student read as they were looking at job descriptions and the economics. They've highlighted some coursework, venture capital. So things like that we want to have in your summary. And then it could be a call for action. So you might include contact information, and if not here, there's a place in LinkedIn where you can add your contact information as well. So again, those first 3 items on your profile that a recruiter or someone looking to connect with you can see, and I can learn a lot about you from them. As you move through LinkedIn, the guide that Ariana shared in the chat earlier, you also have the opportunity to add experiences. Experiences, I think, is a word that is chosen very intentionally for LinkedIn, because it doesn't just mean jobs, work experience. It means internships, whether they're paid or unpaid. So these could be volunteer experiences. You definitely want to include other work experiences. So what I mean by that is not everything will feel like directly tied to the next thing that you're seeking. So for example, if I go back historically, I've had roles in higher ed institutions that are less tied to career education than obviously my role now is in career education. But I want to list them under other, because there are probably elements and skill sets and competencies that I used that translate into future roles. So for you, you might have had a job in high school or an on-campus position that you need to list, because it's the experience that you will have had in those roles that will help leverage you as you're seeking that internship experience in the future. You will also have the opportunity to highlight relevant skills under experiences as you're listing out these bullet points. So as you're writing what you did, you might add in, for example, an upload of a presentation that you provided, so that you're able to highlight those skills. It will pull in, LinkedIn will pull in company logos if the company is connected on LinkedIn, and will be. So as you are listing out companies you've worked for, those will pull in. And again, you can include these samples of your work. This is a PowerPoint presentation. You can upload ePortfolio links. You can include projects. What I will say here is if you're uploading something that has been a shared work experience, like a group project, make sure that all of your team members are comfortable, or redact or leave out specific information if you don't have their permission. So beyond experiences, there's an opportunity to add coursework, organizations to which you belong, a whole category on presentations. So you maybe don't want to add them all under experiences, but you can add projects and presentations and their own specific headings. For those of you engaged in research, either through our summer research programs or McNair Scholars or some other activity that you're involved in at the institution, you can add publications. So if you've written an article, you can add it there. If you're involved in student media, this is a good way to list links to all the locations that you have had. Languages, honors activity, volunteer experiences definitely should be listed. And then recommendations. So you can get recommendations, you can request them, or they can be given because someone's looking at your profile about various skills that you have or encounters that you've had. So it might be that a teammate in a group project that you worked on, you agree to recommend each other because you want that to appear as feedback on your LinkedIn profile. So as you're looking at these sections, you might notice that this also are the same kinds of sections that we talk about when we're talking about your resume. Some are additional, the presentations, the publications, but essentially what you can do to get started on your LinkedIn profile is look at the resume drafts that you have and start pulling that content over into the LinkedIn format. We also want you to be able to, really take control of LinkedIn, and LinkedIn offers the ability for you to customize your URL. So it will create, one lengthy link for you, but you can customize it. So for example, mine is, I believe, some combination of my first and last name so that it's easy to type in. You can add it to an email signature. You can add it under your phone number, email on your resume. I talked about recommendations. Giving and receiving recommendations helps you to grow that network. So I mentioned class projects. If you work with someone in an internship or in an on-campus position, especially if you're in a supervisory role for other students, offer a recommendation and then ask that they recommend you as a supervisor. Depending on the faculty member, they may also feel comfortable if they've recommended you in a formal way for graduate school or a position to endorse you on LinkedIn. Also, endorsed is the language that LinkedIn uses about skills. So as you start to have a connection and network, you'll see like pop-up boxes come up that say, can you endorse this person for this skill set? Make sure that it's reflective of a skill that you can evaluate for that person. But if it is, you simply click and then it'll ask you a few follow-up questions about the level of the skill. And this is important because skills are part of how you get recognized in searches. And having that sweet number of 5 skills, you see the number of search returns go up significantly. Joining groups on LinkedIn is important. And also one of the key elements in LinkedIn, I think it's almost a must do, is connecting with alumni groups and networking. There's also an alumni feature, which I'm going to get to in a few slides, that I will drop a video link for, because we have a network of Kent State alums nearing 160,000 who've connected in LinkedIn. One of my favorite things to do is show students how to connect with alumni. And oftentimes I attempt to go from that 160,000 to some number below 20 using any set of parameters that you might give me. And the reason I do that is because our alumni, you can search far and wide and narrow it down as much as you want. They have been through the experiences of being a Kent State student like you. So even if they don't have a job, they can tell you what it was like, and they're usually happy to, what it was like to apply for jobs at the company they're working at, or what their career experience was like, or what advice they would give you if you're about to interview at company X. So connecting with our alum is really important. And as I click through the future slides, we'll also give you an example of how to write that LinkedIn message. So again, 80% of professionals on LinkedIn, including our alum, have said they want to have a mentor or be a mentor. So there's a new feature within the last year or so on LinkedIn too, that as you're setting up your file, you can see this toggle button to set up career advice. And you can either say that you're offering career advice or that you would like to receive career advice. So if you're not sure how to best utilize LinkedIn right out of the gate, this career advice feature is one that I recommend. So the alumni tool. I just saw that Ariana put the video. It's a short 2-minute video. I think I'm actually narrating it. But you can find KSU alumni that graduated in your degree or major, or that are in your geography, or working at companies that you're seeking to connect with, that can help you. You can also think about, how can I view career paths outside of my major? And what I mean is, oftentimes you'll connect or look at the alumni tool on LinkedIn and see that person A graduated with a degree in history, but is now working in the film industry. And you might say to yourself, how did that happen? This is a good way to view career paths. And as you dive deeper, you might find out that that person is a historical accuracy set assistant in the film industry. So you can always see that these paths, while not linear, are connected because of the transferability and skill set. Informational interviewing, or asking an alum to talk about themselves, is really another great reason to use the alumni tool. We like to share our journeys, our stories with current students, and especially with that Kent State connection, you'll find that this will happen quite readily for you. And for those of you who are living beyond Northeast Ohio, or your hometown that you might want to return to after college, using LinkedIn is a great way to expand the geographic search. So the video goes through this step by step, but when you log into LinkedIn, you'll search for Kent State University. This is key here. This official Kent State University logo will pop up, and you'll see alumni over on the left search. From there, there's a number of search delineators. I can put in geographic delineators, names. I might only want to talk to alumni who've graduated in the past 2 years, so I can change my search to limit to only those 2018 till now. But essentially, once you've narrowed it down, you can send a message like this, starting with that you're a current student at Kent State University. Why? Because I'm connected to you already. We were fellow flashes, and I want to help fellow flashes. And then tell a little bit about yourself. I'm considering a career in mental health counseling. I saw your profile, and I think I could learn something from you. There might be another connector. You see in this message, this went to the same high school. I'm very interested in moving to the geography that you have. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be about company. It could be that you're using it because you're geographically relocating and you want to know what it's like to live in San Francisco. So you find all the alums with a similar interest to you, or alums who recently graduated that live in San Francisco. And then you kind of wrap it up with whatever the details are. Do you have a half an hour to talk? And give them your email address, because in LinkedIn, of course, it's proprietary and they want to charge you to use some of the premium features. But you get this first message and it's limited characters, so you might not even be able to put this full email in the message. But what you can do is narrow it down really quickly to those first few. I'm a Kent State student, saw your profile, could learn from you. Do you have a half hour to speak? Here's my email address or my phone number, and list it there, because then it gives you the opportunity to connect with the alum outside of LinkedIn. Just a couple of things about skills and endorsements. LinkedIn has the add a new skill feature here. You can add skills. You can also take a skills quiz, which is almost a test to see if you really have the skill, and it will, based on your responses and the outcome of that quiz, actually give you a level of that skill. And then endorsements. These are the things that you'll see pop up about individuals that you're connected with. And they can be things as broad as journalism or as specific as a tool that you might use as a graphic designer, like Final Cut. And that it basically gives you the opportunity to click and endorse that person and say, yes, they do possess this. Recommendations, I mentioned how you can give them. You can also ask for a recommendation. Be specific when you're asking for that recommendation, and maybe you even take the conversation offline out of LinkedIn, depending on what you're trying to get at specifically. If it's you just finished an internship with a company, they may say, we are going to give all of our interns who successfully completed the summer program a recommendation on LinkedIn. If they don't, but you still want to ask for one, you might pose that here and then do a follow-up. But You can also give recommendations too. So think about how that give and take can work. And then I mentioned Handshake, which I'm still going to promote as I think the best source for early talent jobs, but you can also search for positions on LinkedIn. You can see that you can search by location. You can also open up additional filters. And there's a new filter that's been added in the last 2 or 3 years that is specifically internships. So I say the more resources you can pull together, the better. But LinkedIn is a great tool to also search for jobs and internships. The gig economy is definitely upon us. I think we see more and more students graduate and they're not going into specific corporate roles. They're doing contract roles and things that are more freelance. So in ProFinder is a service of LinkedIn, and it really is gigs, one-off, freelance. If you're familiar with the platform Fiverr, kind of things like that, where you can find work as a freelance. Just another feature of LinkedIn that I want to point out. And you can see that it's listed under work and more products. Because we're on this slide, this is where you can also connect. I mentioned the alumni group earlier. You can find groups to join. If you have the ability to, so you've paid for like the recruiter feature, you could post a job. And there's some salary database features within LinkedIn that can be really cool too. But these all happen under this icon here. So I know I moved through that pretty quickly. We wanted to give you time to have Q&A. So I'm going to be here in the room to answer questions. I will actually just go into it and share my screen so that we can talk through some of your questions in a more live environment. But if you need help with LinkedIn, if you want to continue to improve your profile or even just get started with your profile, a couple of ways you can do that. You can schedule an appointment, or you can utilize our drop-ins, which occur every day, Monday through Friday, by clicking on the link here, Kent.edu career. Our email and phone is also listed, so we want you to be able to connect with us in any way that's convenient for you. Mentioned it earlier, but we'll state it again. At least for fall semester, these appointments and drop-ins are happening virtually, either in Collaborate Ultra or phone or Microsoft Teams if it's an appointment. So thank you for letting me have that time to give the overview. I'll see it in the chat or raise your hand and you can unmute. Are there any questions? I'm just pulling up LinkedIn now, so I'm going to share my screen again. So for those of you hanging out still, I want to just show you how to do the alumni search really quickly. So you can see I've typed in Kent State. I'm going to wait for the Kent State company organization to load. On the left, I'm going to click on alumni. And then you can see here 161,000 folks have identified. Anyone in the session right now have a particular company or geography that they want me to exercise this on? So is anyone thinking about a specific company or location? Okay, thank you, Kelsey. Kelsey says San Angelo, Texas. So I'm going to add in where they live. San Angelo, Texas area. So we had 161,000. This never happens. It never happens on my very first try, but we've gone to less than on the very first search filter, but we now have 4 alumni. So what I want to do is scroll down and I can see who these 4 alumni are. I can get a glimpse because they have pretty decent headlines, what they've done. We've got an MBA student who looks like they may still be enrolled, but they might have had another degree. We have a teacher, so someone who graduated from College of Education in 2018, someone who's got a background in environmental science, and then some government administration professional. The closer connected they are, you'll see that based on a second. So if it's a second connection, then we know someone mutually. Third connection, it's kind of like these 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, then we know someone who knows each of us. And so you get the sense of how connected you are. But if any of these were of appeal to you, Kelsey, if any of these topics, locations, or maybe they all 4 are simply because of the geography, you would use that connect feature to add the note that we talked about earlier. I'm not going to send a note, but hi, I'm Kristen, and I would talk about being a KSU alum, love to send from you about what it's like in San Angelo, Texas. And I would hit done and send that off. You can see I have limited characters here, so I have to do that with a limited number of words, but key elements, as I said in the presentation, I want to include a way to get a hold of me outside of LinkedIn, because you only get these short notes for those connections. And otherwise, you might have to have the premium feature to do some of the messaging. You usually get a few every once in a while for free, but you can see there's some other pieces of LinkedIn that are proprietary and are not free. So anyone else? So I did that based on geography. It never happens that quickly that we get to that short of a number, but I don't know much about San Angelo, so maybe it's not an area that a lot of our alums end up. Anyone got a company? Thank you for that, Kelsey. Okay, Ohio Health. So you can see the next category here is where they were. You're going to see based on your profile things that are closest, topics that are closest to you. And then Tessa, I'll do Turner Construction right after Ohio. If you don't see that particular company on the list, all you do is click that add button and type in the company. So our 161,000 is going to be larger this time, 117. So what I might do in this case is I want to connect with alum at Ohio Health, but I'm going to be pickier. I want to have alum in the last 12 years, 8 years. And so from there, you can see I'm down to 46. So that's still, for me, that's a lot of people to narrow it down to. So maybe I also am just interested in Columbus area. Now I know Kelsey didn't tell me these particular parameters, but I've got it down to 36. So from here, same thing. I might have to spend a little more time with 36, kind of looking through who are these individuals and make some choices about who I want to reach out to first or how I want to reach out to them. But don't let the 161,000 number seem overwhelming to you. With the application of the right filters, and there's more, I can hit next. I can also get down to a smaller number. So for me, maybe my interest in Ohio Health is really administrative work within the organization. So if I click on what they do in the Columbus, Ohio area at Ohio Health, now I'm down to 5. So there's always another filter that you can add on that will help you narrow that down. So let me go back out, and Turner Construction was one that I saw too. So I'm just going to clear these out, but you get the idea. This is a very powerful tool to use. And the key is when connecting with alumni, that's your connection. You already have that in common. Is that you went to Kent State or that they've identified with Kent State. So Turner, we have 5 alum who are identifying. They have to come in and create their LinkedIn profile too. We may have a few more, but these are the 5 that have updated their LinkedIn profile. So same thing, you have these connections. Where you see these pictures that you have a shared connection, this individual, our shared connection or connections, can also be useful because they can make an introduction to the person who I don't know directly. So another strategy here might be to click on who is my shared connection and then say, hey, shared connection, I saw that you're connected to Brandon at Turner Construction. Could you make an introduction? That's another way to make it less cold call feel and more warm introduction. Okay, so I've gone over the alumni tool. Is there something else that we talked about today that would be helpful? Any questions about other parts of the profile? Yeah, great question. Katie's saying, I'm a first-year student. Should I create a profile now or should I wait until I have experience? I think it is useful to create a profile now because you can begin connecting with groups and using the job search tool. So I'm showing you my profile. I've been working for a long time and have a lot of experience, so it doesn't have to be this fleshed out for sure. But what you can go ahead and add as a first-year student, any work experience that you had in high school, you can add, again, that headline, if you will, that you're a first-year student. Maybe you're seeking an internship this summer or an on-campus position or a leadership role within a student organization. So you can connect with other students as well as you're starting to build that network. You may not have every single thing listed. You know, you might not have as deep of an experience listing. So other things might come to the top for you. It might be volunteer experience that pops up. And you have the ability, I should show you, to decide what goes where on your profile. So you can just toggle these. They don't plot into a specific order. So I can move my volunteer experience up higher. You can list accomplishments, or it might be that you use this out of the gate as a place to put classwork or those project presentations. But specifically, Katie, without that profile, you could also be missing out on that ability to join, like I mentioned, some of those groups, connecting with other Kent State students or alumni, and also the job search feature as well. So I recommend yes, and think of it as a working profile. You're going to continue to add sections and content every single semester. So I think Mina's question is about that brand. How can you make it so that you're more likely to appear in a search? Is that what you're asking, Mina? Yep. You want to have more connections, so you want to grow that network for sure. You want to make sure that you have the profile filled out as possible, and then a couple of the things that we hit on in the presentation. Recommendations are going to be important, as well as endorsements and the listing of skills. So those are going to be key. What I like about LinkedIn, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it right here on my profile, but they give you feedback. And so, again, I'm not seeing it right now, but I know it's out on the main screen, and I were to create or start working on my profile, I start to get feedback in terms of what level is my profile. The other piece that you see out here, and what I mean by what level, is how attractive is it? How likely is it to show up in a search? The other thing that you'll see on your main dashboard, so just by clicking the in or the home button, is a listing of views and post views. So who's viewed my profile, how many, and how many people have viewed my post. So we didn't hit on it in this specific overview session. Content creation is another great way to get that index up for your profile. And so content creation is actually what you're seeing here in the feed. These are the types of posts that you're making on LinkedIn. And that's a great way to get followership. So it might be something about something happening in your industry, or a class project, or commending someone, or posting an article relevant to something happening in your job area. That content gets your profile out in a more public space, and you can see that you can just start the post here. You can add a photo. LinkedIn has a new option to add videos. You could append a PDF. So when we have career fairs, I attach the beautiful PDFs that Ariana sends our staff, and I post about it for recruiters so they can see it. But this content creation, these posts, are also a really great way. For those of you who are publishing or have that experience, you can also choose to write an article on LinkedIn. And so this just gives you a template to develop an article. And so it, depending on the followership that it has, it could end up in the LinkedIn news feed. It will also just post, like I was showing you before, in the content feed as well. So content creation is probably another really important factor in increasing that followership. Absolutely. So Ishva is asking about tutor positions, or I would say any on-campus position if you don't have much other experience. Absolutely. Add every position that you have. And one of the things that's important is how you talk about or articulate that experience on your profile. So for every experience that you list, much like your resume, you have the ability to add bullet statements about the work. So think about not just the job description and what you do, but the impact, how you're helping drive student success by tutoring, and maybe you know the number of students you tutor a week in your role as an academic success tutor. So I would definitely add that. Yes, great question. Julie?
Kristen, I just wanted to jump back to Katie's question about creating as a freshman and just share one of my favorite ways to use LinkedIn with our first year students is by company research. So searching a company's page, and oftentimes I meet with students who are interested in working for a specific company or specific type of company, but don't know what positions are available at that company. So one of the ways to do it is go to the company page and then click on the See Alumni on LinkedIn, and you can see all of those position titles that all of those alumni have, or employees, sorry, and see their 11,000 employees on LinkedIn and see those position titles that they have. And so just sharing another way that you can research starting with a company rather than starting with alumni as well.
That's great, Julie. And two, this way, Julie alluded to it, you'll also see if there are alumni, they'll pop up here as well. So you can start with many different starting points. That's a great way that we use this with our early students, first and second year. Adding to that, not all job titles are the same at all companies, or sometimes they have the same job title, but the role isn't the same. This is a great way to do comparisons with position titles as well. What else? What else are you thinking about with regard to LinkedIn? So I'm just pulling up the link Ariana dropped in the chat earlier, but I do want to highlight this series for higher ed students in particular. So for students in college, short video on how to leverage LinkedIn, and then really a breakdown on everything from job hunting to creating that professional brand, building a profile, landing a job or internship, networking, everything broken down in little bite-sized chunks. And then up here, the profile checklist. And you can see, especially for our first and second year students, you might toggle between the high school checklist and the college checklist. They're going to be similar, but the checklist will walk you through, the checklist guide will walk you through all of the elements that we went through in the presentation today with a quick description of what to add. You'll see we even just pulled these images right from the checklist for how to get to that successful checklist that employers, recruiters are looking for, and what you might build or what elements you might use to build that checklist and profile out. So this is a really useful link, and you can definitely come back to these short videos or tip sheets every once in a while as you're building out your profile. Anything I didn't share that you were hoping I would review today? Yeah, Ariana is posting a brief survey, so if you have some time, please give us feedback on this survey. One thing that I will challenge each of you to do today is once you create or update your LinkedIn profile, connect with 5 new individuals. You have 3 folks here that we're happy to connect with you. So myself, Kristen Williams, Julie Paskett, and then Ariana Suryanka, who are all on LinkedIn, but also most of our career staff have profiles up on LinkedIn, and then each other. Think about who you're taking classes with, working on projects with, and connect with them on LinkedIn, and potentially an alum. If you use the alumni or the company feature to search, connect with some new folks today. Yes, if you need to show faculty attendance for this session, Julie, any feedback on that?
So that depends on your faculty member. We have not had any specific outreach from faculty asking for information, but we do, if you did sign in, we do have record of that. So if your faculty does look for that, we do have access to that and can verify for you. It would depend on the individual assignment and what I would ask your faculty member what they are looking for.
Thank you. But yes, essentially, if you know what you need and you've signed in, we should be able to get your attendance verification. All right, well, thank you all. I'm going to hang around so that if there are questions or folks want me to do something very specific for them in LinkedIn, I can. But otherwise, for those of you who attended today, appreciate you being here and glad that we could share some information on LinkedIn. And I'm glad it was helpful, Molly. Thank you. Everyone.